I'd poured my life into that boy, emptied savings, worked until my hands ached to secretly pay his mortgage for 3 long years. But when Serafina looked me dead in the eye and said, "You just don't fit in," for Christmas, something fundamental inside me fractured. What happened next changed everything for them, because I decided their perfect life was about to unravel. The moment she dismissed me, a chill colder than any winter wind settled deep in my bones. I'd poured my life into that boy, emptied savings, worked until my hands ached. But when Serafina looked me dead in the eye and said, "We think it would be best if you skipped Christmas with us this year. Marcus's clients are hosting, and honestly, Alara, you just don't fit in." Something fundamental inside me fractured. After everything, the sleepless nights nursing a sick child, the retirement drained to buy their perfect house, the mortgage payments I'd secretly made for 3, that was the exact moment the quiet resolve ignited within me. If I wasn't family enough to sit at their lavish holiday table, then perhaps I wasn't family enough to keep the very roof over their heads. What happened next changed everything for them. For me, it revealed a strength I'd long forgotten. I never imagined my life would twist this way. At 62, I thought I'd be surrounded by warmth, gardening, spoiling grandchildren. Instead, I found myself in a house suddenly too big, too quiet, filled with ghosts of memories that mocked my sacrifices. My story began decades ago in Oak Haven, Maryland, a small town where everyone seemed to know your life before you did. I started as a nurse at Havenwood Memorial Hospital right after college. That's where I met Arthur, my late husband. He was a kind man. His eyes promised a peaceful future. We married young, bought a modest house on Elm Street, and dreamt of a full home. Life, however, had its own intricate blueprints. After years of trying, we were blessed with only one child, our son, Marcus. The instant he was placed in my arms, I knew I would move mountains for him. When he was diagnosed with severe asthma at 3, I cut my hospital hours. Those nights, sitting by his crib, listening to his shallow, desperate breaths, rushing him to the ER at the slightest sign of distress, they forged a bond I believed unbreakable. Arthur and I poured every ounce of ourselves into Marcus, into building him a world we could only dream of. We drove older cars, mended clothes, and saved every spare dime. His first desktop, coding camps. Each desire met with my grueling extra shifts. Arthur never saw Marcus graduate. A sudden heart attack stole him when Marcus was barely 20, leaving me a widow at 44. Life insurance barely covered the funeral. The lingering mortgage felt like another heavy weight. I was devastated, adrift. But Marcus, my only child, kept me from shattering. "Mum, maybe you should consider selling the house," Marcus suggested one evening, a month after Arthur was gone. His voice was quiet. "It's too much for just you, and the money could really help with my tuition. You wouldn't have to worry." A sharp pang of hurt, a deep ache, hit me. This was our home, every worn floorboard whispering Arthur's memory. But I pushed the feeling aside. Marcus was practical, grieving. "This is our home," I told him, my voice softer than I felt. "Your father and I worked too hard for it. Besides, where would you stay during breaks?" "No, I'll pick up extra shifts instead." And that's precisely what I did. For 3 years, I worked 60-hour weeks, often taking grueling overnight shifts. My fingers often ached from the hospital's rigid grip, the scent of antiseptic clinging to my skin. By the time Marcus walked across that stage, his computer science degree in hand, I was bone-weary, yet bursting with pride. He was the first in our family to earn a college education. "I did it, Mum," he'd said, hugging me tight. "Couldn't have done it without you." Those words, then, had been everything. Marcus landed a promising tech job in Oak Haven. I was overjoyed. As he built his career, I continued at Havenwood, where Dr. Elias Thorne, Havenwood's chief of medicine, a kind widower without children, often called me his most reliable nurse. Then, during Marcus's second year, he met Serafina Thorne. She was stunning, ambitious, from Westfield's wealthiest family. Her father, Mr. Sterling, owned car dealerships. Her mother, Mrs. Sterling, hosted galas whispered about in hushed tones. Their worlds felt instantly different, a quiet dissonance. "Mum, I want you to meet Serafina," Marcus said, bringing her home for dinner. "She's in marketing at work and she's amazing." Serafina was polite but distant. Her eyes swept our modest living room, thin smile dismissing our worn furniture, the faded family photos. "Your home is quaint," she said, making it clear she meant the opposite. "Marcus tells me you've lived here your whole married life." "Yes," I replied, trying to bridge the chasm already forming. "Arthur and I bought it when we were just starting out. It's nothing fancy, but it's filled with love." Serafina smiled tightly. "Well, that's what matters, isn't it? Though Marcus and I have been looking at properties in Lakeview Estates. Have you seen those new developments? They're absolutely gorgeous. Lakeview Estates, Oakhaven's most exclusive neighborhood, held homes beyond my imagination." "That sounds lovely," I managed, but Marcus looked away quickly, avoiding my gaze. They announced their engagement 6 months later. I was happy for Marcus, but the differences in their backgrounds, their expectations, gnawed at me. Still, I embraced Serafina and tried my best to be involved. "Ilara," Mrs. Sterling said during our first meeting to discuss the wedding. "We've already reserved the Westfield Country Club and hired the top wedding planner in the state. We'll handle all arrangements. You don't need to worry." I felt sidelined, utterly irrelevant, but swallowed the feeling, reminding myself this was about Marcus and Serafina, not me. I offered to help with the rehearsal dinner. "Oh," Mrs. Sterling exchanged a quick glance with Serafina. "We've actually already booked that at Chateau du Blanc. Mr. Sterling has connections there." "I see," I said quietly. "Well, is there anything I can help with?" Serafina patted my hand like a teacher to a small, slightly bewildered child. "You want to contribute, Ilara? Perhaps assemble the wedding favors?" I swallowed the bitter taste of pride. A mother's job, even when it stung. The wedding was pure spectacle. Designer gowns, ice sculptures, a band for royalty. My best dress felt woefully inadequate, a drab uniform among the Sterling's glittering social elite. Marcus spent the reception glued to Serafina's family, his attention fixed on their orbit, stopping by my table only briefly. "Are you having a good time, Mum?" he asked, his tie loosened. "Of course, sweetheart. Everything is beautiful. I'm so happy for you." He beamed. "Serafina's dad is talking about bringing me into the business. Says I have potential beyond programming." "That's wonderful," I said, meaning it, despite the nagging feeling that Marcus was being pulled further into their world and further from me. After the honeymoon, Marcus and Serafina started house hunting in earnest. They invited me along one weekend to see a house in Lakeview Estates, a sprawling colonial with 4 bedrooms, gourmet kitchen, and a Lakeview backyard, designed for entertaining grand gatherings. "Isn't it perfect, Mom?" Marcus asked, his eyes alight. It was beautiful, but I couldn't help wondering how they could possibly afford it. Marcus had a good job, but limited years in his career and student loans still looming. "It's lovely," I said, "but sweetheart, are you sure it's within your budget?" Serafina's smile tightened, a thin line across her lips. "My parents are helping with the down payment. We've run the numbers. We can make it work." What I didn't know was making it work would soon empty my own carefully guarded future, a future I thought I was securing for myself and for him. And what would that future truly cost for a mother who had given everything, only to be deemed insufficient? About a month after they settled into their dream house, the first call came. Marcus's voice on the line was strained, hesitant. "Mum, I hate to ask, but we're in a bit of a bind. The property taxes here are higher than we expected, and with the new furniture, Serafina's car payment," my heart sank. "How much do you need?" I asked, not even pausing to question. 5,000 would help us get caught up," he said, sounding relieved. I withdrew the money from my savings the next day. It wasn't easy. I'd been saving for a small condo, a simpler life as I aged. But Marcus needed me. That's what mattered. This became a quiet, insidious pattern. Every few months, another temporary emergency. The new air conditioning failed. Serafina's company downsized, needing investment in certifications. The hardwood floors, supposedly the wrong shade, needed replacing. Each time I dipped deeper into my dwindling savings. Each time, Marcus promised they'd get back on their feet. Each time, the thank you notes grew shorter, the calls less frequent. Their gratitude, once so effusive, became a ghost. Then came the biggest request of all. Marcus appeared at my house one evening, alone. He fidgeted with his wedding ring, avoiding my eyes. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something serious. Serafina and we're struggling with the mortgage. The interest rate adjusted up, and with everything else, Serafina's father had some business setbacks. They can't help anymore." My heart clenched. I already knew. "How much are you behind?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 3 months, but it's not just that. The payment is just too high for us right now. We don't want to lose the house, Mum. We've made it our home. Our home. The words echoed, mocking the home Arthur and I had built, the home Marcus had suggested I sell. Yet I agreed. I couldn't bear the thought of my son and his wife losing everything, facing foreclosure. "I'll need to talk to Dr. Thorne about picking up more hours," I said. At 60, the overnight shifts were harder, but I would manage. Marcus's relief was palpable. "You're the best, Mum. We'll pay you back. I promise." That night, alone in my kitchen, I calculated the grim truth. Their Lakeview home's mortgage was nearly twice my own. To cover it, my retirement would vanish, postponed indefinitely. My modest expenses would be cut to the bone. But what choice did I have? He was my son, my only child, my last precious connection to Arthur. The silence of the house pressed in, a heavy weight. This continuous pattern of giving, of quiet sacrifice, left a void in my spirit, a question echoing in the empty spaces of my home. What happens when the well finally runs dry, and the giver discovers they have nothing left, not even their own peace? The hospital's fluorescent lights hummed, a constant, weary counterpoint to my own internal exhaustion. The morning after Marcus's request, I spoke with Dr. Thorne. "Barbara," he said, concern etched on his face, "you're already working more hours than someone your age should. Is everything all right?" He sat across from me in his office, the faint scent of coffee clinging to the air. His gaze was kind, but unwavering. "Everything's fine," I assured him, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "Just building up my retirement fund." He didn't look convinced, but respected me too much to pry. "I can assign you to the cardiac care unit for some extra shifts," he offered. "They're always short-staffed, but promise me you'll take care of yourself." I promised, even as I knew it was a lie I'd struggle to keep. For the next 3 years, I paid Marcus and Serafina's mortgage. Each month, I transferred the money directly to their account, often skipping lunch in the hospital cafeteria to save a few dollars. My own house on Elm Street, the one Arthur and I had built our dreams in, showed the strain. Leaky faucets dripped, shingles needed replacing, and my old car went without routine maintenance longer than it should have. I declined invitations from friends, Grace Thompson included, if they involved spending money. My life had narrowed to work, my quiet home, and the endless financial drain of Lakeview estates. During this time, my relationship with Marcus and Serafina gradually shifted. The weekly Sunday dinners became monthly, then occasional. Their phone calls grew shorter, their excuses more frequent. Serafina rarely asked about my life anymore. When I visited their sprawling home, I couldn't help but notice the lavish redecorations, the imported marble countertops, the gleaming new sectional that must have cost a fortune. I was pinching pennies to keep them afloat, while they indulged. The new sectional is gorgeous, I commented during one visit, my voice neutral. It's from that designer showroom in the city, Serafina said casually, her eyes shining. We decided we deserve to splurge a little. Mental health is important, you know. I bit my tongue, thinking of the perpetually damp bathroom in my own house, the repairs I couldn't afford. That same evening, hidden in the study while Serafina thought I was in the kitchen, I overheard her on the phone with her mother. I know, Mum. It's exhausting having to include her in everything. But Marcus feels obligated, you know. At least she helps out financially. My cheeks burned with humiliation. Helps out financially? I was paying their entire mortgage, sacrificing my own well-being to maintain their grand lifestyle. And this was how she characterized my contribution. An obligation. A tiresome obligation. The real turning point came the week before Thanksgiving. I'd been battling a persistent cough for weeks, pushing through my shifts despite feeling increasingly fatigued. Dr. Thorne noticed me leaning against the nurse's station one evening, trying to catch my breath. "That's it, Ilara," he said firmly. "I'm ordering a chest x-ray right now." The diagnosis came back the next day. Pneumonia, with complications due to exhaustion and a weakened immune system. "You need rest," Dr. Thorne insisted. "Complete rest. I'm putting you on medical leave for at least 4 weeks." I protested, thinking of the mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. But he was adamant. "This isn't negotiable. Your health has to come first." For the first time in years, I had to think about my own needs. As I lay in bed that evening, listening to the rain against my window, a difficult decision formed. I would call Marcus, explain, and ask if they could handle their mortgage for a month or 2 while I recovered. When I phoned the next morning, Serafina answered. Her voice was cool. "Ilara, Marcus is in a meeting. Can I take a message?" "It's important, Serafina. I need to talk to him about the mortgage payment." A pause stretched, filled with static. "The mortgage payment? What about it?" Her tone was sharp. "I'm on medical leave. Pneumonia. I won't be able to work extra shifts for a while. So I was hoping you and Marcus could cover the mortgage until I'm back on my feet." The silence on the other end was unnerving. "Serafina, did you hear me?" "I heard you," she said, her voice suddenly hard. "So, you're saying you won't be sending the money this month?" The way she phrased it, like it was an expected tribute, not a sacrifice I'd been making, stung deeply. "I can't, Serafina. I'm ill. The doctor says, we're counting on that money, Ilara." She cut in, her voice edged with annoyance. "We have plans. We've already booked our ski trip in Vermont over Christmas break." A cold wave of shocking realization washed over me. They had money for a luxurious ski vacation, but not for their own mortgage. Their mortgage, which I had been covering for 3 years. "I've been covering your mortgage for 3 years," I said, my voice quiet, trembling with disbelief. "I think you and Marcus can manage for a month while I recover from pneumonia." Her laugh was short and utterly dismissive. "Right, because that makes up for everything Marcus did for you after his father passed. He told me how you leaned on him completely, how he had to be your emotional support when he was barely 20, how he stayed local for college because you couldn't handle being alone." Each word felt like a physical slap, a brutal twisting of my memories. That wasn't what happened at all. I had held myself together for his sake. I worked extra shifts to keep him in college, encouraged him to follow his dreams. "That's not true, Serafina." "Look," she said, with exaggerated patience. "We all know you've been helping with the mortgage because you wanted to be involved in our lives, and that's fine. But don't try to use your health as leverage." Now I was speechless. In what universe was paying someone's entire mortgage considered wanting to be involved? I was a lifeline, not an enthusiastic participant. "I'll talk to Marcus tonight," I finally managed. "Please have him call me." But Marcus didn't call that night, or the next. The phone remained silent, a stark symbol of their indifference. And as the hours ticked by, a new question began to form in my mind, a bitter realization that clawed at my heart. When the very people you've sacrificed everything for distort your history and dismiss your pain, what truly remains of the love you poured into them. 3 days later, the phone finally rang. It was Marcus. His voice, when he spoke, was rushed, defensive, a stark contrast to the quiet boy I remembered. "Mum, Serafina told me about your conversation. I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but we really need that payment. We've committed to hosting a pre-Christmas dinner for Serafina's work colleagues, and we've already ordered new dining room furniture." "Marcus," I said, my voice steady despite the pain in my chest, a pain that had nothing to do with pneumonia. "I've been paying your mortgage for 3 years. 3 years of extra shifts, of skipping meals, of putting off repairs on my own home. I'm asking for a short break while I recover from a serious illness." Silence on the line. Then, "So you're keeping track. I thought you were helping because you wanted to, not because you expected something in return?" His words hit me like a physical blow. How had we gotten here? When had my son become someone who could speak to me this way? "I don't expect anything in return," I countered, my voice cracking, "except basic respect, and perhaps some concern for my health." "Of course I'm concerned," he rushed, but his tone belied the words. "It's just bad timing. The holidays are coming up, and we have obligations." "Obligations more important than your mother's health?" I asked. He sighed, the sound crackling through the phone. "Let's not make this dramatic, Mum. Look, I'll see what we can do. Maybe we can send you half this month." "Half? After everything he was offering half?" "Don't bother," I said, a strange, quiet calm settling over me. "I'll figure something out." After we hung up, I sat in my silent house, truly seeing my situation for the first time. I had given everything to a son who viewed my sacrifices as obligations. I had emptied my savings to maintain his lifestyle, neglecting my own needs, working myself into illness for people who planned ski vacations, while I couldn't afford to fix a leaky faucet. Something fundamental had to change, and it had to start with me. The next day, despite still feeling weak, I made 2 critical calls. The first was to my bank, to stop the automatic transfer to Marcus and Serafina's account. The second was to my old friend, Grace Thompson. A retired teacher, Grace had been trying for years to get me to join her volunteer group at the community centre. "Ilara, darling," she exclaimed warmly when she picked up. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" "I was wondering if that offer to join your book club is still open," I said, surprised by the lightness in my own voice. "Always. We meet on Thursdays at the library. But aren't you usually working then?" "Not anymore," I said. "I'm making some changes." The decision felt like turning a Titanic ship. Years of ingrained habits, of living for others, began to shift. The silence in my home still echoed, but now it felt less like emptiness and more like possibility. This path, though daunting, felt like the first breath of true freedom I'd taken in a long time. But how many of us, when facing such profound betrayals, mistake self-preservation for selfishness, rather than the true act of reclaiming one's own narrative? As I recovered from pneumonia over the next 2 weeks, a new rhythm took hold in my silent house. I started reading books that had been sitting on my shelf for years, dust gathering on their spines. I invited Grace over for tea, her warm presence filling rooms that had felt too empty. I even called my sister Linda in Ohio, whom I hadn't spoken to in months, too consumed by extra shifts and Michael's demands. She sounded surprised, then genuinely delighted. Meanwhile, Michael's texts and calls began, each more urgent than the last. Where was the mortgage payment? Had I forgotten to transfer the money? Was there a problem with the bank? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on getting well, on allowing my body to heal, and on reconsidering my priorities. My phone lay face down on the table, a silent testament to my new resolve. The day before Thanksgiving, Michael finally showed up at my door. He looked harried, his normally neat hair uncombed, eyes shadowed with stress. "Mum," he said, the moment I opened the door, "there's been some mistake with the mortgage payment. The bank says the transfer was cancelled." I stepped aside to let him in, noticing how he barely glanced at me, didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't comment on my still evident weight loss from being ill. "It wasn't a mistake, Michael," I said calmly as we sat in my living room. "I cancelled the transfer intentionally." He stared at me, uncomprehending. "What? Why would you do that?" "Because I'm no longer able to pay your mortgage," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm focusing on my health and my future now." His face flushed with anger. "You can't just decide that without warning. We have commitments based on that money." "Like your ski trip?" I asked quietly. He had the grace to look momentarily ashamed before rallying. "That's not fair. We work hard, and we deserve a vacation. And I deserve to retire someday," I countered, my voice rising slightly. "I deserve to live without working myself into exhaustion. I deserve to be treated with respect by my son and daughter-in-law." Michael ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "This isn't like you, Mom. You've always been there for me, and I always will be, emotionally, but financially. You and Serafina need to stand on your own 2 feet now." He stood abruptly. "Fine. We'll figure it out ourselves, but don't expect us to rearrange our lives to include you when you're being this selfish." Selfish. The word hung in the air between us, a cruel, bitter accusation. "Thanksgiving is tomorrow," I said, changing the subject, my voice heavy with what I truly wanted to ask. "Will I see you and Serafina?" He shook his head, not meeting my eyes. "We're going to the Sterlings. Serafina's mom is expecting us." "I see. And Christmas," he said, his voice taking on a rehearsed, distant quality. "About that, Serafina's parents are hosting at their place this year. It's going to be mostly their crowd, their family friends. Serafina thinks, we both think, it might be awkward for you." And there it was, after everything. After years of putting their needs before my own. After sacrificing my retirement, my health, I wasn't even welcome at their Christmas table. Awkward. I repeated the word, tasting bitterness in my mouth. "It's nothing personal, Michael," he said, already backing toward the door. "It's just a different crowd, you know. You probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway." But it was personal. Deeply, painfully personal. "I understand," I said, though I didn't. "Not really. I hope you have a lovely holiday." After he left, I stood in my doorway for a long time, watching the spot where his car had been parked. 34 years of motherhood, of putting him first. And this was where we had landed, a place where I was considered selfish for not working myself to death to pay for his lifestyle, where I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner because I didn't fit in with my own son's new life. That evening, a text from Serafina buzzed on my phone. "Michael told me about your decision. Very disappointed. Thought you cared about our family. Guess we know where we stand now." I didn't respond. Instead, I made another decision. One that would change everything. The next morning, rather than spending Thanksgiving alone feeling sorry for myself, I drove to the community center. Grace had organized a holiday meal for seniors who had nowhere else to go. I hadn't told her I was coming, and her face lit up when she saw me walk in. "Ilara! I didn't expect to see you today," she exclaimed, her voice a balm to my raw spirit. "I had a change of plans," I said simply. She didn't pry, just handed me an apron. "Well, we're glad to have you. The mashed potatoes need stirring." For the first time in years, I enjoyed a holiday meal without tension, without walking on eggshells, without carefully monitoring my words to avoid offending Serafina or her parents. The seniors at the community center were grateful for the company, the food, the simple kindness of being remembered on a holiday. As I drove home that evening, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: peace. And with that peace came a chilling clarity about what I needed to do next. When we feel utterly dismissed by those we've sacrificed for, what unseen forces gather to empower our quiet rebellion? A heavy heart guided my steps to Mr. Alistair Donovan's office, but a new, unyielding resolve pulsed beneath the old pain. His office, A quiet space of bookshelves and the scent of aged paper offered a sense of calm competence that had comforted me years ago after Arthur's passing. Mr. Donovan, his gaze perceptive, listened patiently as I recounted the 3 years of mortgage payments to Marcus and Serafina, the verbal understanding that bound me. He nodded, making notes. From a legal standpoint, without a written agreement, this money could be considered a gift, he explained. However, an implied contract could be argued, but that would be a lengthy, costly process, and quite public. My stomach clenched at the thought of suing my own son. "I don't want legal action," I said, my voice quiet. "I just want to protect what I have left." "Then I recommend documenting everything," he advised. "Every payment, any texts, emails, just in case." He paused, his expression growing serious. "There's one more thing, Ilara. If they default on their mortgage, and your name is on any loan documents, it could affect you." My heart leaped. "My name isn't on their mortgage, but I did co-sign on a home equity line of credit last year. Serafina said they needed it for home improvements." Mr. Donovan's eyes narrowed. "In that case, if they default on that loan, the lender could come after you for payment?" "How much was the line of credit?" $50,000, I whispered. He sighed. "I strongly recommend you check the status of that account immediately. If they've drawn on it, you should consider paying it off directly to protect your own credit." I left his office with a chilling clarity. My financial vulnerability, a direct result of my sacrifices, was sobering. My first stop was the bank. The representative pulled up the account. "Current balance on the HELOC is $48,622. My mouth went dry. They'd used almost the entire line. "When was the last transaction?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "A withdrawal of $12,000 on November 15th, just before Thanksgiving, just before the ski vacation, just before the Christmas exclusion. I'd like to pay off this balance and close the account," I said, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "The entire balance? That's a significant amount," the representative replied, surprised. "I understand. I'll be transferring the funds from my retirement account." It took nearly 2 hours. The early withdrawal penalties were substantial, but Mr. Donovan's words echoed. The alternative was far more costly. As I drove home, a strange numbness settled over me. I had just sacrificed almost all my remaining retirement savings to protect myself from my own son's financial recklessness. The pain of that reality was so profound, it had circled around to a cold, hard emptiness. At home, 3 missed calls from Marcus and a text. "Need to discuss mortgage situation ASAP. Call me." I set my phone aside. I needed time. That evening, I stared at my financial tally. $20,000 left in accessible savings, barely enough for a year. My pension would be modest, years away. My house was my only other asset, one I'd hoped to leave to Marcus. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. All these years saving for his future, now facing the possibility of selling my home just to secure my own. My phone rang again. "Marcus," I answered. "Mom, finally," he said, irritated. "Been trying to reach you all day." "I had appointments," I replied simply. "We need to talk about this mortgage situation. Payment was due yesterday. Late notice from the bank." "Yes," I said. "I imagine you did." There was a pause. "So, are you going to send the payment or not? Because if this goes on our credit report, I won't be making any more payments on your mortgage, Marcus," I interrupted. "As I told you last week, I'm focusing on my own financial security now." "Mom, you can't just—" He stopped, then adopted a wheedling tone I knew from his teenage years. "Look, I know you're upset about Christmas, but that's Serafina's family's tradition. It's not like we're excluding you deliberately, except that is exactly what you're doing," I said quietly. "Serafina specifically told me I wouldn't fit in with the crowd at her parents' house." "She didn't mean it like that," he protested. "It's just that her family does things differently. They're more formal than the woman who raised you." Who worked 60-hour weeks to put you through college? Who has been paying your mortgage for 3 years? The silence on his end was deafening. That woman isn't formal enough to sit at a Christmas table with your wife's family. You're keeping track, he snapped. I thought you were helping because you wanted to, not because you expected something in return. I don't expect anything in return, I said, my voice breaking, except basic respect and perhaps some concern for my health. Of course I'm concerned, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. It's just bad timing. The holidays are coming up and we have obligations. Obligations more important than your mother's health? I asked. He sighed. Let's not make this dramatic, Mum. Look, I'll see what we can do. Maybe we can send you half this month. Don't bother, I said, a strange, absolute calm settling over me. I'll figure something out. After we hung up, I sat in my silent house, truly seeing my situation. I had given everything to a son who saw my sacrifices as obligations. I had emptied my savings to maintain his lifestyle, neglecting my own needs, working myself into illness for people who planned ski trips while I couldn't afford to fix a leaky faucet. Then, Marcus's final, shocking blow. You know what? Fine. Keep your money. Stay home alone for Christmas. I hope it's worth it. The line went dead. I sat there, the tea cooling in front of me, letting the tears come. Not just for the immediate sting of his anger, but for all the years I'd poured into him, believing my sacrifices would be recognized, for the gradual erosion of our bond, replaced by appearance and status, for the mother I'd been, who had failed to teach her son the value of gratitude. The next morning, I woke with swollen eyes but a clearer mind. I couldn't control their reactions, only my own. I called Grace. Are you still able to take me for Christmas dinner? She exclaimed, Of course, we'd love to have you. Just your wonderful self. Then, Dr. Thorne's office. I'd attend the hospital Christmas party. His secretary sounded delighted. Finally, I called Linda, my sister in Ohio. We talked for an hour. Sounds like you're finally taking care of yourself, she said. It's about time. Sometimes the hardest part of being a parent is letting our children face the consequences, Linda added wisely. You taught Marcus how to walk by eventually letting go of his hands, right? This is just the adult version of that. Her words were a balm. Linda promised a visit after New Year's. The prospect of reconnecting, of being valued, lifted my spirits. For the first time in years, my life wasn't arranged around Marcus. I was making plans based on my own wishes, connecting with people who reciprocated affection, setting boundaries. It wasn't the life I'd envisioned, but it was one I could embrace with dignity. As I looked at the circled Christmas Day on my calendar, I erased the red mark. I wrote, Dinner at Grace's 2 p.m. Not the family holiday I'd planned, but perhaps the beginning of a new tradition, built on mutual respect. And that, I realized, with bittersweet peace, would have to be enough. Yet, in the quiet moments between these brave new steps, could I truly silence the gnawing question of whether a mother's heart can ever fully heal from the wounds inflicted by her own child? Choosing myself brought swift, painful confrontation. My new, lighter hospital schedule offered peace, but Marcus's calls grew desperate. He arrived, furious about the cancelled mortgage. He accused me of selfishness, then delivered the ultimate blow. I wasn't welcome for Christmas, deemed awkward for his new life. His wife's subsequent text of disappointment twisted the knife further. Thanksgiving Day at the community center offered brief solace, but the real test soon arrived. Mr. Sterling, Serafina's father, appeared, brazenly attempting to bribe me to resume their mortgage payments. His casual offer, seeing me only as a financial tool, ignited a firm refusal. Later, Marcus called, enraged. He accused me of ruining their holidays for rejecting Mr. Sterling. His cold, final words, "Keep your money. Stay home alone for Christmas. I hope it's worth it," severed the last thread. Tears fell, not just from pain, but the profound loss. Yet when love is met with such cold disdain, How does one finally choose dignity and reclaim their own worth? Christmas Eve arrived, a light dusting of snow transforming Oakhaven into a scene worthy of a holiday card. My mother's ginger cookies filled the kitchen, a quiet peace settling within me. Later, Ellen, bundled in red, teased me about my big Christmas Eve date, my dormant self awakening. Richard's Tudor home glowed. "You look beautiful," he said, his appreciative gaze meeting mine. Dinner was perfect, candlelight dancing. "I've wanted to invite you for years," Richard confessed, "but you seemed more present in your own life now." "Necessity," I admitted, explaining how illness, born of sacrifice, led to painful revelations. The hardest part, accepting the closeness I thought we had, was conditional. When I set boundaries, everything changed. "Does it make me a bad mother?" I blurted. "Absolutely not," Richard said, firm. "It makes you a good mother, one modeling healthy self-care." His validation eased something deep inside. Our goodnight kiss, gentle yet lingering, sent a shiver of possibility. This wasn't someone else's life. It was mine, finally expanding. The next morning, Serafina's call. "Ilara, I think we need to talk. Cafe at noon." Her voice, genuinely distressed. She was pale, tired. "Marcus doesn't know I'm meeting you," she whispered. "Did you know about the gambling?" The words hit me. Serafina confirmed Marcus's addiction. 2 years of secret betting, maxed credit cards, mortgage 4 months behind. My savings, the HELOC, all had fueled his vice. "I'm at my breaking point," she admitted, voice trembling. Marcus had become volatile, blaming her. He implied that if I were a better wife, he wouldn't need to escape through gambling. "That's textbook addict behavior," I stated, anger rising for her. "I'm scared," she confessed. "It's never too late to prioritize your own well-being," I said, taking her hand. To set boundaries. She was seeking therapy, looking at apartments. "If you need help, I'm here," I offered. She hugged me, a genuine apology. What looked like abandonment was actually love, creating space for truth. I stepped into the cold, ready. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Serafina appeared at 8 South, packed. "Marcus found out. He became volatile. I need a place to stay." "You're welcome," I said. Around noon, Marcus appeared, furious. "Where is she?" he demanded. "She's turned you against me." "Marcus, you need help," I said firmly. "Professional help for your gambling addiction." "I don't have an addiction," he raged, trying to push past me. "This is my home," I stated. "I'm asking you to leave. If you refuse, I'll call the police." He stared in disbelief. "You'd call the cops on your own son? On Christmas Day?" "I will, if that's what it takes to maintain boundaries and keep everyone safe." His shoulders slumped. "Fine. But tell Serafina this isn't over." "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said, voice small. "I'm sorry it turned out like this." "I'm sorry too," I replied. "I love you, Marcus, but I can't support behaviors harmful to you." Inside, Serafina said, "I heard everything. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," I assured her. Grace, Ellen, and Richard arrived with food and cheer. Our impromptu dinner was filled with warmth, laughter. Serafina relaxed, even laughing at Ellen's dating stories. Richard's gaze, warm with admiration, met mine. Serafina later called her parents, emerging with profound relief. "My dad said he was proud of me." I reflected alone. 6 weeks ago, I was desperate. Tonight, I hosted, welcomed, began a new relationship. A strength had emerged. A year passed. On a warm spring day, I stood in my backyard with the Oakhaven Garden Club. Richard installed a trellis. Serafina, in her own apartment, planted herbs, rebuilding her life, divorce underway. Marcus, hitting bottom after gambling his in-laws' loan, entered treatment. He was trying. I had retired. Time filled with travel with Richard, painting, calls with Linda. I'd cancelled payments, yes, but given myself and Marcus something invaluable, a chance for lives built on truth. That evening, Richard took my hand. "Your courage," he said, "in being willing to rewrite your life. That's what I admire most. It's never too late to become the person you were meant to be." I smiled. I finally understand that. Peace settled over the blooming garden. A year to the day after that fateful Christmas, I addressed a support group for families of gambling addicts. The hardest decision was to stop paying that mortgage. It felt like abandonment, but it was actually the most loving thing I could have done. I offered hope to a tearful woman whose son had also spiraled. Walking home, I reflected. Marcus was 6 months sober, cautiously rebuilding. Serafina's divorce final, new job, new relationship, our bond, a genuine friendship. Even the Sterlings funded a treatment program. Richard cleared snow from my driveway. "How was the meeting?" he asked. "Good. Important. I think it helped some people." "You have a way of offering hope," he said. Through the window, the Christmas tree twinkled. This year, Marcus would join us. So would Serafina, Grace, Ellen, Linda, and her new boyfriend. "I was thinking," Richard said, stomping snow from his boots, "about the house. I meant what I said. I think we should do it. Selling both our houses, buying a new place together." "I think you're right," I said, certain. "It's time." I touched his cheek. This past year taught me the best decisions feel frightening at first, but lead to growth and joy. Stepping into the warmth of my home, soon to be just one chapter, I felt profound gratitude for the courage to set boundaries, to face truths, to begin again. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. How often do we find that our greatest acts of self-love become the unexpected turning points for everyone around us? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage and transformation.